بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قوة عين الرسول يا سيدنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله.
يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها
عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله.
يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاتم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها الله اشفع لنا عند الله
يا أبا الحسن يا علي يا ابن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها
عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله
يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله
يا أبا الحسن يا علي يا ابن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله
يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله
يا وسي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتدى والمهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا مولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا
يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله
حاجات يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليومي فقوي وحاجتي الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عن الله وجاهي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Hasan. Hine ka better? Yes. محمد وعلى محمد صلوات. لاشے پہ زینب رو کے پکاری بھیا ہمارا کوئی نہیں، خیمے جلے اور سجاد قیدی کفنی تمہارا کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب رو کے پکاری بھیا کوئی نہیں، خیمے جلے اور سجاد قیدی کفنی تمہارا کوئی، دیکھو اے بھائی میں زہرا کی جائی، لاشے پہ آئی ہوں بے پردہ ہو کر، مارا گیا ہے عباس غازی کفنی تمہارا کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب رو کے بھیا ہمارا کوئی نہیں، خیمے جلے اور سجاد قیدی کفنی تمہارا نہیں، ویرا ہے خیمے خالی ہے جھولا، تشنا سکینہ کے قصے کو دیکھوں گی، کر ہوئی چور بے آس بیٹی اب تو سہارا کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب بھیا ہمارا کوئی نہیں، بے کسیاتی موقع کا فیلا بائی، تو ہی بتا دے کہاں لے کے جاؤں، لاشے سنبھالو یا کنبے کو دیکھوں، غم کا کنارہ کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب بھیا ہمارا کوئی نہیں، کریل جوا کی میت ہے آئی، کہتی ہے لیلا اے میرے اکبر، کس کی نظر تم کو کھا گئی ہو، میرا سہارا کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب رو کے پکاری بھیا کوئی نہیں، بولی رو کے زہرا کی جائی، کرب و بلا میں گر لٹ گیا ہے، مارا گیا ہے اب میرا بھائی، وارث ہمارا کوئی نہیں، لاشے پہ زینب رو کے پکاری بھیا ہمارا کوئی نہیں، کرب و بلا میں ہم کو بلانا، آ کے وہاں ہم کر لے زیارت، کرب و بلا میں ہم کو بلانا، آ کے وہاں ہم کر لے زیارت، ہائے تمنا آوے وہاں ہم، اس کے سوا کوئی آرزو نہیں، लाशे पे ज़ैनब रो के पुकारी भैया हमारा कोई नहीं, ख़ैमे जले और सज्जादे कैदी कफनी तुम्हारा कोई नहीं। सूरत बाक़िल फ़ातिहा।
Surah Fatiha is requested for Khadim of Imam Rida, Marhum Ebrahim Raisi and his delegation, and all Marhumin. Kul arwah al-mu'minin wal-mu'minat, sawab al-Fatiha. And now I would like to request Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to please come forward and recite tonight's Majlis.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، صلوات محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For these Ziyarat Majalis, for those who have been attending, we have used this opportunity to go through some of the reasons, the philosophies about some of the ahkam and some of the practices regarding mayyit, regarding death, the janazah, the salah, and such things. We have previously talked about the reason or the wisdom behind pouring water on graves. We talked about the idea of reciting Surah Al-Qadr 7 times on the grave. We talked about the idea of Salatul Mayyit itself and what was the point of that. And for tonight, inshallah, we want to go into some of the details of Salatul Mayyit itself. Now, as most of you know, outside of our regular daily salah or salawat, we have all these other still wajib prayers that must be done. And in almost every single one of those wajib prayers, for example, when we have namaz-e-ayat, when an eclipse or something like that happens, almost every single one of those types of namazes has something very unique about it. So for namaz-e-ayat, it's the number of rukus, right? That is setting it apart from everything else. Even for Eid namaz, which obviously is not wajib, right? Because we're in the ghaiba. But even there, because of the number of qunuts, it sets it apart from other types of namazes. Alaikum salam. So one of the issues we want to go through, or at least for tonight, is to look at one of those main differences that exists within namaz-e-mayyit. And what's interesting, I don't know how much time we're going to be able to go through all of this, but as I was looking in some of the riwayat and the explanations of the ulama, there's actually a lot here to unpack. Now, in terms of how the Ahlul Bayt have explained the reasons for it, it's fairly straightforward. It's actually not too complex. But for the analysis behind how they explained it, that actually requires a lot of time. And I don't think we have that much. But I want to give us at least some points to think about. A lot of us have these types of questions, right? Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why is this type of ibadah like this? Why is this type of namaz become qasr? How come this one doesn't? Why is this specific distance enough for my namaz to be qasr? Like, why is it like that? How come this namaz is 3 rakats? Why are these specific things najis and these things are not? People have these types of questions. And we're not the first ones to ask these, right? Back then, they had these same sort of issues and they would ask the Ma'sumin alayhimus salam as well. What's interesting though, is that there were different reasons and different ways that the Marsumin would explain some of these principles to the people around them. So as we go through some of these answers tonight, I want you to even keep that in the back of your mind too. That, there's not even just one style of education that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam engaged in. Right? Just like for you and I, we all approach Islam in slightly different ways as well. And this is things that we've talked about before. So for example, one of the ways where a question about an Islamic ritual or practice occurs to us is when it has to do with the fact that we are acting differently to somebody else. Specifically, that we as Shi'as are practicing something different than the Ahl Sunnah. Because if we were doing the same thing, then maybe the question wouldn't come up. Right? Sometimes it happens that people are not going to ask the question because all Muslims are doing the exact same thing, so it's not a big deal. But sometimes, because of the fact that there is a difference, this is why people will ask a question. Like one example is the timing for Maghrib, right? Or breaking fast, right? That's when people usually are concerned. Why is it that they pray earlier, that they break their salah earlier? They break their fast earlier and they pray earlier. Which of course is not always the case. We have some Shia mujtahideen who do allow earlier, but generally, what we're used to is that we delay a little bit and they do it earlier. We wouldn't have that question if we didn't know that they did it earlier, right? So sometimes that discrepancy or that difference invites a question. So this same thing happened back then as well with one of the companions. And this companion was actually a female by the name of Salama. She was one of the companions of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. And what's interesting, again, I don't have time to go into all of this, but her husband, her son were all some very, very well-known companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. So this hadith actually that, I probably won't go through the Arabic, I think, because of just time constraints. But this hadith, basically the son of Salama, whose name is Muhammad ibn al-Muhajir, he is narrating it from his mother. So his mother is the one who's going through this story, who ends up getting an answer from, she gets an answer from Imam Sadiq, and she then goes home and tells the story to her son, and now her son is spreading it out to the rest of the Shias, and that's how it's recorded in this book. Well, it's just a very, very interesting point that sometimes people don't understand. We don't think about women being narrators necessarily, although they are. We think of Bibi Fatima or Bibi Masuma or Bibi Zainab. We don't think of just the average sort of females that existed. And this is one clear example of somebody having an issue. They went to Imam Sadiq. After she has this encounter, she goes home and educates and teaches her son. Right? And these are the kind of things that we want to instill in our household as well. Okay. Let me jump to, I have to skip the Arabic, but let me give you the summary of the story. So Salama, again, she's telling her son. She says, I was going out towards Mecca. Now, it doesn't say here whether this was Hajj or Umrah. She says, I was going towards Mecca, and I went with a group. And in that group, there was somebody from a certain other sect of Islam. Now, once we had reached a certain area of Rabada, this other woman from another sect of Islam and every other person that was in the group, they all put on their ihram. But I didn't put on my ihram. I waited till we got to a different area known as Al-Aqiq. When we got there, that's when I put on my ihram. And this female companion of mine who was in our caravan, she noticed this. So then she goes on this tirade. She says, oh, you Shias, you differ with everything. You pray this differently, you recite this differently, everything you do is different. And then she added, she said, even your namaz al-mayyit, your salatul mayyit is different than ours. She says, we, meaning the regular Muslims, we do 4 takbirs in our namaz al-mayyit, while you Shias do 5 takbirs. Now, Salama, again, she's narrating this, she had no answer right away. She didn't know what to say. And again, at the end of this sort of story, as this kind of non-Shia woman is kind of going on this tirade, she ends by saying, Wallah, I swear to Allah that, we're in right and you're the one in the wrong. And, there's no more difficult and kind of shameful position sometimes for us to be in, right? Where we all believe we're in the right? We're on the path of haqq. But then sometimes somebody points out something that's different, We don't have an answer. They might say, hey, this is what it says in the Quran, why are you Shias doing it like this? This is what all the other riwayat say, why are you doing it like this? And that puts us in an awkward position when we don't have the answer. Again, we should be able to just say, look, I didn't study this stuff, I don't know, why don't you go ask, a scholar or read a book? But it still does make us feel a little, inferior, a little inadequate. So she probably felt this way too, Salama. But immediately, again, whereas you and I, sometimes we get hesitation whenever we have a doubt, whenever we have shak, whenever we don't know something, sometimes we just say, you know what, that's just the way it is. And we stop there. But Salama, being a proper Shia, goes right away to her hujjah, to her imam, again, who was Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. So she goes and, with ihtiram and respect, and here I'll start some of the Arabic, right? So she says her salams to him and says, Aslahak Allah, says, may Allah keep you, preserve you, right? And keep you in a good state. Sahibatni imra'atun min al-murji'ah. So this woman from another sect, the sect of Murji'ah, which I don't have time to discuss what that sect is. They were an extremist sect that existed, and they were the exact opposite of the Khawarij. The Khawarij thought that everybody was going to hell, right? They would do takfir on everybody. The Murji'ah were another sect that existed at the time that were the polar opposite. They thought that nobody can judge anybody else, right? Allah loves everybody. It doesn't matter if you don't practice, like a lot of progressive liberal types that we have, right? The same thing existed back then. So, this woman from this sect came, and this is all the things that she had said to me about our takbir and their takbir in Salatul Mayyit. Again, I want to make sure we remember. In our namaz al-Mayyit, we do 5 takbirs total, right? So she knows that this is our practice, but she didn't know why there was a difference between the Ahlul Sunnah and the Shia. So she's asking Imam Sadiq, what's going on over here? So he replies, and Imam Sadiq, knowing that, and again, this is one of the wisdoms of the Ahlul Bayt sometimes they would just explain the issue. They would just tell them, look, we, nahnu dalilullah, we're hujjatullah, we can just tell you, you're a Shia, we'll give you the answer, and that's enough. But Imam Sadiq knew that this woman now is going to have to answer other Muslims. Other Muslims may not take Imam Sadiq as a hujjah. So what does Imam Sadiq do? As he does in many cases, as do other members of Ahlul Bayt when the need calls for it, he says, let me narrate to you from my grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Because obviously now, when she goes back and says, hey, this is what Rasulullah used to do, now that person from Ahlul Sunnah can't respond to it, right? So he says that إِذَا صَلَّى عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ. So Imam Sadiq is saying, when Rasulullah would pray over a mayyit, كَبَّرَ فَتَشَهَّدْ. So he would do his first takbir, and then he would do a shahada, which we normally do, right? After the first takbir, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله, and then there's mustahabbat after that too. ثُمَّ كَبَّرْ فَصَلَّى عَلَى النَّبِي وَدَعَى. Then he did his second takbir, and he did salah on the anbiya, the nabi, and he made dua for them. ثُمَّ كَبَّرْ وَإِسْتَغْفَرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. He did his third takbir and asked and performed istighfar, asked for the forgiveness for all mu'mineen and all mu'minat. ثُمَّ كَبَّرَ فَدَعَى لِلْمَيِّتِ. Then he did his fourth takbir, asked for forgiveness and istighfar for the actual mayyit, the person who passed away. ثُمَّ يُكَبِّرْ. Then he offered his final takbir, that makes it 5. وَيَنْصَرِفْ. Then he would finish. Okay, so that's the 5, that's where we get it from. So he explained the Shia point of view. Then he says, فَلَمَّا نَهَى اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَنِ الصَّلَاةِ عَلَى الْمُنَافِقِينَ. Now, this is how Rasulullah was doing it for every single mayyit up to a point. Then Allah had commanded that salah, asking for forgiveness for the munafiqeen is not allowed anymore. Doing istighfar for munafiqeen is not allowed. So then, what would happen? Then Imam Sadiq continues, this is how Rasulullah then changed his procedure. كبر فتشهد ثم كبر فصلى على النبي ثم كبر فدعا للمؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم كبر رابعة. So the same procedure happened, right? First takbir, second takbir, third, and fourth. That last part, where normally he would do istighfar for that mayyit, he would stop there. And this is how all the other Muslims recognize, even though the Salatul Mayyit is happening, they recognize that no, this person is not one of the mu'mineen, mu'minat. This is a munafiq that Mayyit was being recited for. That's why Rasulullah stopped at the fourth takbir. And then Imam Sadiq ends, this is why we do 5 and they do 4. They continued on with the practice without knowing that it was done for a very, they don't know the fact that this is the way it was for the munafiqeen. but yet they've taken the wrong practice, and have continued that till this day. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sometimes that happens to us as well too, where there are certain practices, rituals, cultural things which made sense for a certain area, certain time, certain place. It had its benefit, but it didn't carry on the same way, and it needed to change for a reason, and sometimes we carried it on unknowingly. Khair. This was one reason. Again, what we would call this reason is, call it your polemical reason. Right? So Imam Sadiq is explaining this is why the Ahlul Sunnah have unfortunately taken on this habit of doing it 4 times, 4 takbirs, where we do it 5. But that doesn't explain to us the wisdom of 5 though, does it? It just says why there's a difference, but it doesn't tell us what's the wisdom behind 5 takbirs rather than 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 1. Why that difference? So let me quickly go through that while we still have a few minutes left. So again, another hadith, Imam Sadiq explains to somebody else, same thing. He says, there's 5 takbirat. And he asked one of the companions, Abu Bakr al-Hadrami. He's like, do you know why? Companion says, I don't know why. He says, أخذت الخمس تكبيرات من خمس صلوات من كل التكبيرات. He says that these 5 takbirs that are done for the Salatul Mayt, each one of these takbirs is taken from each one of the 5 daily salat that we do. So each one of the 5 takbir that we do in the Namaz al-Mayt is representative of the 5 salawat that we do in our day, right? That's where it's coming from. Okay, so that gives us our quick answer. Okay, now I got it. But still, for those of you who may be thirstier and say, look, that sounds good, but why would it be taken from there? What sort of deeper meaning is there? Is there a way to connect that first story that Imam Sadiq gave one answer to somebody? Said, while we do 5, because Rasulullah did it, because it's for mu'mineen, mu'minat, munafiqeen was 4, and unfortunately, the Ahlul Sunnah mistakenly carried on with that practice. Then Imam Sadiq says, and Rasulullah had mentioned it in other riwayat too, that we do 5 because it's taken and each takbir represents the 5 daily prayers. Okay, but what's the deeper sort of meaning? What do each of these takbirs really represent? And another way of saying it is, what do each of the 5 daily salat that we recite, what do they represent? And for here, we will go to Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. So somebody had asked him, "Ma al-'illa fil takbirat 'ala al-mayyit khamsu takbirat?" What is the 'illa? What is the reason for these 5 takbirs that are done? And now the companion who's saying this says, "Rawaw annahum qad ishtuqqat min khams salawat." He says, it's been narrated. So this was a Shia asking Imam Rida. He said, look, I've heard other people saying this, that it's been taken from the 5 daily prayers. So he's just confirming with the Imam. Right? You have other people who would go and ask the Imam if they didn't know. Even this, which is a much higher level practice for the true Shia, is even when they think they know, they say, let me just go get it confirmed anyway. I don't want to live in shak or doubt. I want to double check and make sure that this is what my Imam tells me. So this companion is saying, okay, I've heard that it's coming from the 5 daily prayers. Is this correct or not? Imam Rida alayhi salam says, فَقَدْ هَذَا ظَاهِرُ الْحَدِيثِ. Yes, this is the zahir of the hadith. This is the apparent meaning of the hadith. The exoteric, the outer meaning. فَأَمَّا بَاطِنَ. So there's a batin too. There's an inner, hidden, spiritual, esoteric meaning. And what is that? فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَ فَرَضَ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ خَمْسَ فَرَائِدِ. Allah has placed 5 specific farida, fara'id, wajibat on us. What are these 5 wajibat? You and I should know, it's not just the furu'ad-din that you and I are thinking, because that's 10 anyway, but it's something which we call the bunyad of Islam. Imam Rida continues. As-salah, was-zakah, was-siyam, wal-hajj. So, the 5 things that are mandated are salah, namaz, zakat, fasting, siyam, hajj, and the 5th, wal-walaya. These are the 5 things that these 5 takbirat and the 5 daily prayers are connected to. He continues, فَجَعَلَ لِلْمَيِّتْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَرِيضَةٍ تَكْبِيرًا وَاحِدًا. For each of these things, that's what each of these takbirs for the mayyit is representing. One takbir is representing salah in general. One takbir is representing zakat. One takbir represents saum. One takbir represents hajj. And the final, the most important one, the one that separates us from everybody else, is the takbir of the walaya, representing the walaya of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. فَمَنْ, and he says this himself, فَمَنْ قَبِلَ الْوِلَايَةِ كَبِّرَ خَمْسَ. Whoever accepts our wilayah, then they're going to do the fifth one. From a literal perspective and a spiritual perspective. Somebody might have love for the Ahlul Bayt, but they don't consider them, their followers and their leaders. If that's the case, then this riwayah, this teaching, the fact that they're doing it wrong, and they're unfortunately doing it for the munafiqeen instead of, as they should, do it properly with the five, they've missed out on that. In the same way that their wudu is incorrect, because they've missed out on the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt. You see, even though, again, we're not saying that they're going to go to hell because of this. That's not the point. Our mujtahideen say that they are judged based on their own evidence, on their what their scholars tell them. That's fine. We're talking about the haqiqah, the truth. That this is what's missing. When you don't have the Ahlul Bayt, when you don't go and source it from the Ahlul Bayt, when somebody just kind of makes things up as they go along, they're going to miss these things out. They'll miss out on the zahir and the batin meanings of things. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَقْبِلَ الْوَلَايَةِ كَبَّرَ عَرْبًا. So whoever doesn't accept our walayah, then they're going to stop on these 4 takbirs. فَمِنْ أَجْلِ ذَلِكَ يُكَبِّرُونَ خَمْسَ وَمِنْ خَالَفَهُمْ يُكَبِّرْ عَرْبًا. That's why we, us, the Shia, we're doing 5, and the Ahl Sunnah, or the other ones, they're doing 4. As we are also remembering the wiladat of our beloved 8th Imam, and we honor these individuals who have passed away in this tragic accident. May Allah give sabr to their families, especially to their children. For adults, for the people of Iran, yes, it might be a difficult time for them to deal with this sort of tragedy. But whenever there's a loss like this, there's no one that feels it more than the children of those households. Young kids now who had probably said their final salams, their khudafis to their fathers or their grandfathers and had sent them away, expecting that their fathers would be coming back. Imagine having to be somebody over there breaking the news to the children that, no, your father, your grandfather has passed away in this tragic accident. It's not a position that anybody would envy. Very difficult position. And when we think back to the Ahlul Bayt as well, we see that their level of ma'rifah is different, right? Whereas these young children in Iran, the children of these marhumeen, they were expecting their fathers to return. And, when they got the news, I'm sure they were brokenhearted. But with the Ahlul Bayt, their level of ma'rifah is different. So the way that they interact with their fathers in these instances is also different. And of course, as we are remembering Imam Rida, it's difficult to not remember the final sort of experience between Imam al-Jawad and Imam Rida. As riwayat tell us, when Imam Jawad was young, and he had gone together with his father towards the Kaaba, performing in either an Umrah or a Hajj. As Imam Rida was performing his tawaf, and he was finishing up his final Hajj or his Umrah, then Imam Rida told one of his servants to go collect my son and let's go head back to our home. And when that servant went to go pick up a young Imam al-Jawad refused to leave. He refused to get up. He said, what is this? Why won't you get up? And Imam al-Jawad just wouldn't do it. And he had this very difficult, he had this demeanor on him, very sad. And when the servant went back and told Imam Rida, he said, fine, let me come. So Imam Rida went to Imam al-Jawad and he said, why is it that you are not leaving? Why do you want to stay? This place is time for us to return home. And Imam al-Jawad says, he said, I saw the way that you were performing your tawaf, your hajj, your umrah, your sa'i, the way that you were doing this. He said, I saw the way you were doing this and it's as if you were doing your al-wida, your hajjat al-wida. He says, this makes me feel like this is the last time that I will be with you in a long time. Imagine a young child, an imam like this, being able to tell his father that this is probably the last time that I'll be able to see you because I know the way that you are acting. I know how the imams perform their ibadat. And this might be the last time that I see you, and how heartbroken Imam al-Jawad was and how he didn't want to leave. And now imagine this same experience happening with Bibi Sakina in Karbala. as she is trying to hold on to the hind leg of Zuljana and telling him, don't go, don't take my Baba away from me. When Abbas went out, when Akbar went out, even when Asghar went out, none of them came back. And now you, Zuljana, are going to take my Baba away. But even this young girl over here, she asks, she says, Baba, fine. Tell me, are you going to give your life for Islam? Is that what you're going to do? Imam Hussein tells his young child, yes, I'm going to preserve and protect deen, protect Allah's deen. That's what I'm going out for. So, okay, Baba, then I give you ijazat, then you can go out. But can you do me one last favor? He says, sure, what is it? Can you please let me sleep on your chest one more time before you leave out there? ألا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Let's recite a Surah Al-Fatiha for all of the Marhumeen from this tragic accident. Marhum Sayyid Ebrahim Raisi, Marhum Hussein Amir Abdullahian, as well as the governor of the East Azerbaijan province, Marhum Malik Rahmati, the Imam Jum'ah of Tabriz, Ayatollah Muhammad Ali Ali Hashim, and all these others, servants, the bodyguards, and all those others who died tragically in this accident. Let's recite a Surah Al-Fatiha for their blessed souls with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wow.